Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 28th meeting of the Finance Committee. Mr. Sides, Mr. Price, and me are on the call, so I call this meeting to order. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes of May 5th. Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes of May 5th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next is the approval of the minutes of the May 26th meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the May 26th meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next, approval of the minutes of the June 2nd meeting.
Motion to approve the minutes of the June 2nd meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, discussion items. Fiscal 21 relief funding update. Mrs. McLeod.
I have continued, Ms. Heintel and I talked about just continuing to update the original document that we sent to you all in June at the June board meeting. We have received some additional funds, or I guess it was the July board meeting. We have received a few additional funding allotments for some health support and some non-digital resources. We've continued to get confirmation that we will be getting funds for the additional Canvas licenses and some other items that for EC. Right now, a few of the things that I just kind of wanted to update you all on. House Bill 1023 was one of the addition and revision bills that they did for coronavirus relief. One of the things that I don't think many, we've talked some about transportation. There was some redirect in that bill of $12 million statewide from transportation funds. I've done some rough calculations, what that means to our district. That could be somewhere around $200,000 to $250,000 in a reduction to our transportation allotment. Those funds are to be redirected for meal transporting over the summer for yellow buses. So right now, that's an application process. I know that information just went out to the child nutrition directors yesterday. So we'll be working through that. They did some estimates. We did a survey early on what we were spending on a weekly basis. I think we were at like $3,500 or $3,600 a week to run 4 buses. The other redirect that took place in that bill was for technology funds. There was $18 million of technology funding that was redirected to the software modernization project at the state level. Now, that means about $500,000 to us. And we currently, Mr. Parker uses those funds for license renewals and things like that. We do have some carryover, about $800,000 in carryover funds that will be able to get us through the FY21 year. But when it comes to FY22, because those funds will have been exhausted, I'm just making an assumption that there's a possibility that these funds, since they're non-recurring funds, that they may or may not continue to using that to fund the software modernization project. So those are 2 major operational technology items that I at least wanted to bring to you all's attention. I did mention the learning platform for Canvas. We should get about $30,000. We got notice yesterday that we will be receiving those funds. They just have not been allocated to us. They go through a process to be put into our allotment. Then the EC fund.
So in one House Bill 1023, we would be losing $750,000.
Yeah, potentially, yes. Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't gone to the Senate yet?
No, that's all approved. I'm telling you all, this is done.
Okay.
But I'll just say also that the technology piece of that, with the 18 million being redirected, that was a complete surprise. None of us knew that was even a possibility. It wasn't on my radar. It wasn't on Jay's radar. And talking with colleagues across the Big 12, no one had that on their radar. So, Jay uses those state funds also for emergencies. So if we have a server that goes down, if we have an issue with security, it's a big deal. And so for him to lose that amount of money from the state, he's confident that we hope, well, I wouldn't say confident, we hope that we'll be okay for the current year. But for the following year, we may have to look at a new line item in our budget request locally if that state fund is not reallocated. So that is a big concern. Of all years to take away technology funding, this year was not the year to do it. And that was done, and it was completely out of our control. So, any advocacy that the board can do at the state level to reinstitute those funds would be greatly appreciated.
So let me get this straight.
Have you talked to Craig Horn recently?
I have not, no.
So let me get this straight. In this day and time where, you have districts like CMS that are going all virtual, and we are offering that option. And approximately it appears 19% of our students are going with that option. The state is cutting technology funds while this is becoming a lifeline for these students to learn. Now, somebody explain to me how that makes sense. Anyway, all right, Shauna, would you, I would be glad to do whatever I can. Could you put that in an email, that specific issue, relate to the House bill and the details and what the funds entail? Just give me some background information in an email so that I can speak intelligently on it to whoever will listen.
Sure, I'll be glad to do that.
Gary,
I'll send it to the finance committee.
Our four
Yeah, I'll send it to the full finance committee. Mhm.
Yeah.
The other thing we got notice on yesterday was some EC funds, because I know it's been a little while since we went through all of the CARES Act and relief money, how it was allocated out and all the different buckets of funds. So we're starting to see some of those items come through. And one of the other items was for EC funding. There's some potential for about $300,000 to support some of the extra costs that for extending the school year and services or future service for EC students who have probably been negatively impacted, as all of our students have, on being in this extended closure. One of the other things that I don't know if we talked about in detail, we've talked about the Senate Bill 818 was the compensation bill. Keeping up with all these mini bills has been a challenge. There's been multiple changes of our benefit rates and different things. So I wanted this came up this past week. Senate Bill 818 was for compensation. That bill was the one that included the $350 bonus for teachers and instructional support staff. One of the things I don't think people understood is where those funds came from. It was $37 million that the state had allocated for performance bonuses. That included APIB bonuses, the 3rd grade reading bonus, the 4th grade reading, the 4th and 5th grade reading, and the 4th through 8th grade math bonus, and the CTE bonuses. I don't remember if I said CTE, but all of those bonuses were all related to some type of testing or assessment. And I don't know if everyone understood that those have all been redirected to give every teacher and instructional support person a $350 bonus. So I don't know if people are anticipating those bonuses, the bonuses that they've been getting for the last 2 or 3 years, to also be part of their compensation. But I just wanted everyone to understand and know we'll probably send something out, because I think this came up, and I think it's another one of those items that kind of, because of all these different bills, hard to keep up with all the different redirects and all the funds that are being used and how they're using them. You see the good stuff, which is the $350 bonus for all teachers, but then how are they paying for it? It wasn't new money. So I
But they
did
took it from other bonuses to pay for the $350. So the net may not be in their
So you will have people who have been accustomed to getting a much higher bonus, getting a $350, and those that haven't been getting it, so Again,
The
I don't know if the
350.
logic was due to the assessments and the testing that they were using for that, not having that information this year for assessments to be able to do those bonuses. They would have sat there unused. So it was better to do the 350 for all teachers, but I just don't know if everyone is understood that that's where those funds came from.
So we're going to get something out to our teachers and instructional staff so they understand what is going on. Okay.
Yes, we are putting together something to send out to them.
Okay.
So our staff may lose money on a $350 bonus, certain ones.
I wouldn't say that. They would be getting a $350 bonus instead of nothing, because this year
Right.
they most likely would have not gotten a bonus.
But they could be losing ground over what they got last year.
Right, they were for testing assessments that didn't
Right.
happen last year, so
Right.
they wouldn't have got, what John is saying, they wouldn't have gotten them anyways because those assessments didn't happen. But at least they're getting the 350, but I don't know if everybody understands that, so that still the hits keep on coming.
So the good news is no testing. The bad news is no bonuses because of no testing. And then you're getting this. Okay.
Right, so the other thing that, are you done or do you have more, Shauna?
No, those are really the big things that I wanted to kind of go over with all of you.
The other thing I wanted to share with the Finance Committee is that I found out yesterday that county employees are getting a $5,000 bonus from state funding for coronavirus state funding. And Ms. McLean, you can correct me when I'm wrong here, for employees who worked from March on through what's been going on. Unfortunately for us is that we don't have the funds to do that. Our state funding was used for making packets for K through 5 in the beginning, and it was used for school nutrition so that we could continue to provide food for students. So it's somewhat disappointing that the county got money and they used it all for bonuses for their employees without thinking about our employees. Our facilities and maintenance staff has been working through all this. Child nutrition's been working through all this. We have a bunch of employees have been working every day throughout coronavirus, from March, 11th on, working for us. And unfortunately, we're not able to do the same thing. In addition, the county employees also got COLA increases where our non-certified employees did not get COLA. So that we talked at budget time about the fact that we're losing employees to the county because the county is paying a higher hourly rate and other things, and now it's just getting bigger.
And in our last budget request,
right,
we asked for $1,000 increase in the supplement for our staff, our professional staff, and that was denied, correct? So we got turned down, giving our hardworking folks $1,000 bonus, and the county's kicking out $5,000 bonus.
Right. There was also supplement increases for nurses and psychologists, and there was also increases to get people up to market for a bunch of our transportation staff as well, and that got funded. Yep.
All that was denied. So we weren't able to even we're losing even more ground just to county staff.
Right. Well, and we've heard of other counties where the county level got state funds that shared them with the schools and others. So just an interesting little tidbit to add to what's going on.
So that's really all I have. I will continue to update that sheet or that document just as we get additional funds, and we'll provide those periodically, either before our finance committee meetings, or if I have some to update before a board meeting, I can provide that, as part of consent or as the information, just to keep you all informed of the dollars that we're getting. And keep in mind that a lot of the money we are getting is the deadline to spend is still December 30th, and much of it we have not received yet. So, just keep that in mind too.
Wait a minute. We haven't got it yet, but we have to spend it by December. Yeah. This is July.
Right.
The end of July. Yes.
Right. It's basically August. Yeah. Okay.
thank you for these updates. I have one question or a couple questions. On the last page under federal approved planned expenditures, you make reference to private schools. Is that pre-K or what is that?
No, those, the CARES Act funds that we got that are federal funds were, and I know there's been a lot of discussion in the news about some of this from the federal level on how the funds are to be allocated. So we
Okay.
got money and we have to do our due diligence, and we reach out to private schools to see if any of them want to participate and get any of these dollars. So right now we have 4 private schools that are interested in some of this money. So we do a per pupil share to them. So some of our dollars have been reserved as unbudgeted until we get the numbers of their student enrollment, give them their portion. It's the same we do with Title I, because they did the allocations as a Title I allotment. They
we
use
have
this.
to reach out to them.
Yes, we have to request, and there's a list that DPI provides. We send a certified letter to all of them. We did a lot of this before we submitted our application, because that's the normal process that you would go through. So like I say, there's 4 that have requested funding, and once we get their numbers, so I've put, I think the unbudgeted numbers on there is about $600,000. I don't really know what the number's going to be, because again, it's a per pupil share. There's been a lot of discussion about what formula to use and how to do the allocations to make sure so that we are able to use our funds district wide. We're using our total enrollment, their total enrollment, and not basing it on Title I eligible students. So once we have that information, I will be able to report back to you how much of those funds will be allocated to the private schools. And they submit requests to us. They have to follow the same guidelines. We process the POs for them and do all of the paperwork for them. So, I mean, we're almost as a third-party administrator for those dollars.
Have we given them a deadline to apply, to contact us?
I really can't do that. We're working with them now. They should have some of their enrollment numbers about when we do. So, you know, a lot of them they need those funds to start ordering things as we've done. So, yeah, once I have that information and know how much of those funds will be allocated to them, I definitely will report back to them.
I mean, is there some kind of cutoff date for us? I mean, for the application for those funds overall, not just for them?
We have until the end of September of 2021 to spend the dollars. So
really, school year or next.
Right. I would suspect that we'll have that information shortly. I'm working with Dr. Hogston on that. She does this regularly with our other entitlement grants. So she's been very helpful in working through this process because she's used to doing it. So
does anyone else have
well, because the reopening and some of the funding projections, this is kind of part of that same discussion. If you all want to move on to that.
Does anyone have any questions on the state and CARES Act funding update that Mrs. McLam provided? If not, we'll move on to school reopening.
Okay, so we've been working through some estimates. One of my peers shared through our organization a workbook that I've been using to help estimate some of the cost of some of the health and safety items, PPE, additional facility needs. And just to give you all an idea of Plan B and the cost associated, right now I'm estimating about $8.5 million that will be needed just to cover those items, additional transportation, additional staffing, a lot of different needs that are outside of our regular operations. So 8.5 is where we're at. I continue to, as we get additional funds, I'm trying to manage how we're paying for things and make sure we're maximizing all the dollars that we're getting. But right now, our CARES Act fund, the total is $4.7 million. Now, just as we just talked about, I have some funds reserved for private schools that are allocated out. So I have taken the 8.5 that we are estimating in health and safety facilities, PPE, staffing needs, all those items. We've talked about it, a nurse in every school. That will be a combination of contracted services and full-time staff that we're trying to hire right now. So, I've got all of the items that I can reserved out of CARES Act funds. That's still going to leave about $4 to $5 million in funding shortage or deficit based on the projections that I have and where the funds can be allocated. So I just wanted to.
That $8.5 million, is for the whole year, or how much the whole year? Okay.
I'm trying to do a whole year estimate, again, until we get into school, it's going to be it'll be a little easier for us to maybe run some estimates. I had initially felt like maybe $800 to $1 million on PPE. I've shifted that a little bit to more like $1.5 to $2 million on PPE, just because of the costs that we're finding on procuring some of these things, and the more scarce they become and the harder they are to procure, I assume some of the costs will go up. Now, the state has provided us with PPE to get us started, but they were very clear that they will not be providing anymore. So
the state gave us how much of PPE? Because when the governor announced Plan B, he made a big deal about how much all this stuff that they were sending to us. So where are we with that?
So they provided some PPE for the nurses. They provided the push packs for the nurses. They provided the thermometers, and they provided
1 per 100 of students.
Correct.
Okay.
They're providing 5 masks for every student.
Teachers too.
Well, and then they're providing 5 masks for every employee.
Staff. Okay.
5 masks per week.
No.
5.
5. Yeah, I think they have like 10 to 15 uses. They're washable.
Essentially, the PPE that we were given will last us for the first 2 months of school. They have said that you can basically, under Plan B, you can count on these for being of good use for the first 2 months. After that, it's up to every local LEA to fund the additional PPE that would be needed for their employees and or students.
Okay.
Yeah, we just have that money laying around. Why don't we just pull that out of our savings account?
Oh, wait.
So the longer we're in Plan B, the more costly it will be. So, that's why we're running estimates. It just depends on how things go. I've included some dollars in that estimate of 8.5 for if we need to do a full deep clean on a school, or, I've done some of those kind of things included in there, just so you know that that's part of those estimates.
Shauna, are your cost factors variable by what our 20 and 40 day numbers end up to be? In other words, does that figure reduce if our student population reduces significantly after all this shakes out, or is it pretty much a fixed cost to operate?
Some of it may. I did not include in these estimates to provide a mask for every student. Now, the state has sent 5 per student, but we're not going to be able to afford to provide masks for every student. What I have estimated is, and what we've purchased so far, is to have some masks, to be able to disperse on buses. So if a student is waiting at the bus stop and doesn't have a mask on, you can't leave them there. They could get a mask, but we're not intending to be able to. We just can't afford to provide a mask for every student.
So what I'm hearing is that we have a little over $4 million from CARES Act, taking out the money that we may need to give to the private schools. So, and we have 4.5 months of school for the first semester, and we have a couple months of state provided, some of state provided PPE. So we can get through the first semester, and we will have to continue to have this discussion with respect to more than that. Is that what Todd, Gary, and Joe, is that what you guys are hearing?
Yeah, you basically got enough money with the additional costs of Plan B to get through half the school year. And then then who knows? Now,
We don't know what it's gonna look like then.
And I think, if the board is asking, what can we do to help? One thing I would ask you all to consider is right now, members of Congress are gathering to look at federal relief aid. That's a big deal. And so if you can help us advocate for our local needs with our federal leaders, members of Congress, that would be a huge help. And I can ask Ms. McLam to also in her email to let you all give some talking points or details, because that federal relief, if I'm hearing there may not be any more state aid coming, we definitely would appreciate the federal aid. And if that is a part of the new relief bill, that would help us tremendously. So Ms. McLam,
Right,
I'll ask you to email that as well.
I agree, but as well as sending it to to our federal legislators, we should also send it to our state too. I know I have heard that the governor say that he is hoping that Congress deals with more funding, but I think we have to let our state legislators know that we have these issues as well. So that email would be great.
Yeah, because we had a legislative update yesterday from NCASA, and one of the things they did discuss was that in September, when our state General Assembly comes back, part of why they're coming back in September to talk about some of these things is that school will have been started, and maybe they can identify how some additional funding could help. Now, I think Dr. Houlihan's right. The more we can advocate with those state leaders to let them know we have needs, would definitely help in that. So I will put something together and send that out to you all.
excellent.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Shauna, did those, let's be an optimistic type and say at the semester break, we're able to go to option A. How much would that reduce that projected 8 million in change dollars if we were able to convert to plan A for elementary, middle, and high? Do you have a feel for that?
The only thing I can tell you is that if PPE isn't a factor, which I don't know that would be the case, but if it wasn't, that's about, maybe 1.5 to $2 million of that number.
Mm-hmm.
So if the PPE piece, but some of the staffing and other needs that we're going to have are really going to remain there. Now, there is quite a bit built in there, just so you all know, for us to use if we have remote learners that some of the younger grades may need some printed packets. So I have included some funds in there for those kind of things as well. So, if we didn't have to do that, it might be another, $1 million or so.
And if they loosen
they
loosen the restrictions on the number of students on a bus, will that have some positive impact on?
Of course,
money
yes.
for transportation? Okay,
Yes.
so we got to have, the long and short of it is, we've got to have almost a perfect scenario where we go back to almost a normal for the spring semester, and still there are going to be costs incurred. Because I don't care what happens, I don't see in January the requirements for PPE and maybe even the transportation going away and the staffing. I don't think there's anybody in their wildest dreams can hope that that's going to go away in January. So I think we're in it. I think your number here, we're in it for the year, and we better hope the feds come through or the state comes through, because we're looking at $0 come the end of this first semester. Is that pretty much sum it all up?
I would say yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? If not, we will entertain a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is August 25th.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good week.